Walker, last name spelled W-A-L-K-E-R, the undersheriff here at the sheriff's office. On my far left is Chief Deputy Joe Graff. He's in charge of our road patrol. Larry Friedman, District Attorney in Genesee County, and Chief Deputy Jerry Brewster, who's in charge of our investigative unit. The reason we're here today is for an investigation into a suspicious death that occurred on Monday, April 16th. April 16th, about 11:57 a.m., our emergency dispatch center received a call of a unresponsive female that was in one of our local motels. It was the Sunset Motel, which is at 4056 West Main Street Road. The first officer on scene, which was Sergeant Midas with the sheriff's office, as soon as he went into the room, checked and found out that the female was deceased and immediately noticed that there was something suspicious about the occurrence and called the investigators to come down and do the investigation. Through our investigation, we found out that the victim, who we have not been able to get a hold of the next of kin yet, but we will release the name in hopes that maybe somebody through the news will give us some information so we can eventually contact the family. Victim's name is Sherri. Her first name is spelled S-H-E-R-R-I. Middle name of Colleen, C-O-L-L-E-E-N. Last name Butler, B-U-T-L-E-R. She's a white female, date of birth of 10/18 of 1959. And the autopsy was done. And through the autopsy, it was determined that it was sharp force trauma to the carotid artery, and it was labeled as a homicide. Basically, the sharp force trauma to the carotid artery is a puncture wound to the neck. And the investigation is still continuing at this time. Does anybody have any questions?
Do you know how long she was deceased for before you found her?
It looks like it was probably, it's hard to determine when the exact date was, but it was probably last seen, so it was late Friday, early Saturday morning that she was last seen by somebody.
So you're saying you're not able to pin it down any more than that between last time she's seen it?
Through witnesses, we can only say that she was last seen at that time.
How long has she been a resident there?
Our first contact we had with our law enforcement was January 2014, so we're assuming it was right around that time that she became a resident.
And you didn't mention anything about any leads, suspects. Have you come up with anything that points in any direction, or are you looking for information along those lines?
The investigators are still out there interviewing people with information or witnesses, so that's all we have at this point.
Do you know if the Sunset Motel had cameras to help in this investigation?
They do not.
They do not have any cameras there.
Not being able to get a hold of the next of kin yet, does that mean, do you think she didn't necessarily have a lot of roots in this area, other than, of course, being here since 2014?
We've been looking for assistance with Rochester Police Department to help us with that, and at this point we have not, with Rochester PD and our records, we have not been able to come up with any next of kin.
She has a history in Rochester.
Yes.
Can you elaborate on that at all?
I don't know what the history is, just that they had information on her as well.
From Rochester or from Genesee County?
I don't know her actual roots are. She was in Genesee County starting in 2014, and last contact Rochester Police Department had was prior to that.
Do you know if she was retired by any chance? She's 68 years old. So was she retired?
Not 68. She's 58 years old.
Oh, I'm sorry. 58. Out of that.
Are you looking at any type of weapon or something, puncture wound? Any guesses there? Like what we have?
We don't know what the weapon that was used is at this point. I'm sorry.
Sign of a struggle at the crime scene?
I'll let you answer that, Chief.
There were things at the crime scene that would suggest that there was some movement prior to death. So we want to call it a struggle. I don't know even necessarily call it a struggle, but there was definitely movement within her room.
Was it her room, her residence that she was found in?
Yes, it was her room.
And was there any sign of forced entry or anything like that?
No,
No sign.
there was no sign of forced entry.
So is it possibly somebody that she knew?
Still under investigation at this point. I mean, there was no forced entry into the room, so it's hard to assume at this point if it was somebody she knew or not.
About
door-
having cameras and kind of having that gap in time
It's difficult, but they're out there interviewing everybody that they can to try to get the information, and hopefully we will be able to come up with the information we need through their investigation.
Any evidence of robbery or sexual assault or anything else, any other associated crime?
We're not gonna talk
That's-
about that right now.
Any drug activity? Drug-related activity? Any paraphernalia or anything like that?
There was no paraphernalia.
Had she ever been involved with any kind, on any of these calls where she was a victim of a domestic dispute or anything like that?
The history of the calls, I don't know what they were at this point, Howard, so I couldn't answer that.
So there is a history of calls since she's lived there? but-
Did it have involved her?
Yeah.
Yes, we do have some history with the victim.
Who called?
It would have been the owner of the hotel.
How did the owner come upon the room? If they're a resident, is there a cleaning service or?
It was, they hadn't seen her in a couple days, so that's why he checked.
Where was she found?
Other-
It's a one-room room, so,
Yeah,
okay, she
this-
was found in the room.
Well,
On the bed, on the floor, or
We're not gonna release that right now.
was a weapon recovered?
A weapon was not recovered in the room.
Has there been a history of calls at the motel itself or just involving this woman?
We've had calls at that motel, but
You wouldn't classify it as a problem hotel?
no.
I don't know if this was covered, forgive me, do you have suspects, any leads or suspects?
We're not gonna answer that at this point.
So
Could you-
at this point, you're just looking to find next of kin. I mean, you have not been able to find that at this point.
Correct, we don't know who the next of kin is yet, so that's something we're hoping to through the news release also, that maybe we can get some information coming in about who the next of kin may be, if there is any.
What information are you looking for besides that? What information are you looking for from the public related to this, to helping you solve this case?
Chief?
Well, because she lived in a motel unit that pays week to week, that she would have been in contact with people that are probably similarly fixed, and sometimes these people don't readily communicate with the police. So we're hoping that when they realize that this woman's been murdered, that they may decide to step outside themselves and help the police for once. And so, they could be a big help to us if they decide to come forward.
Pretty much all these residents are on some sort of fixed income government assistance, which I assume she was too.
I think that's a logical inference, but I'm not gonna confirm that.
Since you want the public to come out and help, what's the best way for them to contact this office?
Just call the sheriff's office, 343-5000, and that call will be directed to where it needs to go.
What about as far, are there any previous photos of her that you could put out there that would be easy to identify her, so people would know what she looked like at least?
I can check into that and see if we do.
You ever
I
have,
don't know
you
offhand.
don't know if there's a booking photo available?
Offhand, I don't know.
I don't think there is.
Was the autopsy able to reveal any other injuries other than cause of death?
There were some other superficial injuries, but that's all.
Could you speak in general terms, how often is Genesee County having to deal with homicides of any nature? Is this a rare instance or is it common?
It's rare for Genesee County. I think our last one was probably 3 or 4 years ago.
December 1st, 2015.
December 1st, 2015.
From what you guys have gotten, is there anything that you've learned about her personality, obviously a victim of a crime, but who she was?
We do have officers that were familiar with her, so that's the best I can tell you right now.
Jerry, you and I have talked about some of the other unsolved cases in the county before. You've got a lot of experience in this. Based on that, is this feeling like a case that you're going to be able to solve, or are you worried this is going to be another one that's going to be very difficult to solve?
I never go into one thinking I'm not gonna win, so I'll tell you that's how I feel in this case too.
Okay, thank you.